Hello class, this is Dr. Bear and I want to guide you through a lesson on the basics of publishing. This will be in lieu of our class on Monday, and I want you to listen through this. I want you to take notes, and then there'll be a quiz on Populi following this. What we'll cover in this class is photography, layout, and printing. First, let's talk about photography. Professional publication begins with professional photography. If your pictures don't look good, your publications will not look good. And you want your publications to look as good as possible. When we're talking about photography, let's first talk about the quality or what is called the resolution of pictures. Quality or resolution. Digital photographs are made up of pixels. Pixels come from the words picture elements. The smaller the pixels, the better the quality. So the more pixels a picture has, the better the quality. The smaller the pixels, the higher the resolution. So very small pixels make better quality and high resolution. Excuse me. Let's look at the photograph of this little girl. This really looks good on our screen, doesn't it? It looks sharp, it looks clear, but this picture shown on a screen is actually made up of really small picture elements, pixels or squares. If we zoom in on the eye of the little girl, you can see those pixels, can't you? They go anywhere from white in the glint of her eye to a light blue at the edge here, grayish, kind of showing shadow and form in her eye, to light tan, medium, dark brown. Some of these almost even look black. Oops, sorry. But if we go back to the original picture, again, we don't see the pixels. It looks very clear and sharp because the pixels are really, really small. Standard professional printing requires 300 PPI, and we measure resolution by PPI, and what we mean by that is pixels per inch, or dots per inch. Even though they're little squares, sometimes they're called dots. DPI or PPI, and we want 300 for standard professional printing. So if we look for example, at a 4x4 picture, we would need 4 times 300, which would be 1200 pixels wide and 1200 pixels high. This photo, if we printed it in the way we should, would have 1200 pixels wide and 1200 pixels high if it was a 4-inch picture printed on a piece of paper. Now, screens are a little different. In a screen or a monitor, for example, a picture you want to put on Facebook that has a, that is going to be shown on a phone or a monitor, you're not really concerned about PPI. It doesn't really matter, but the number of pixels does. The standard definition TVs are 720 pixels tall, 720. The high definition TVs are 1080 pixels tall. So why do we care? Well, sometimes you would want to do pictures, for example, for your TVs at your church, or your monitors, or your projection equipment at the church. You need to know how many pixels wide and how many pixels tall your graphic needs to be, so it will be best suited for that projection. If you look at something like our website, and this is our old website, as you can see, this picture that we used that Miss Bear took a few years ago in the summer with the crepe myrtle and the library in the background, it's a beautiful picture. It is only 940 pixels wide and 360 pixels high. Now, if I took that picture and I printed it in standard resolution for printing, about how big would it be? I'll give you a second to think about it. 940 divided by 300 will be a little over 3 inches, wouldn't it? 360 divided by 300 would be a little over 1 inch. So this nice big picture on a screen would only print at 3 inches by 1 inch. See why resolution is so important, and knowing what you're going to do with the picture is really, really important. Now, when you're going to store pictures, they can be stored in various formats. Here's 4 examples, what we call RAW format, TIFF format, JPEG format, and PNG. We're not going to take time to go through all of these right now, but these are the kinds of formats, and we'll look at those again a little bit later. Because when we are going to store something, we're going to be concerned about memory. Our computers only have so much memory. Our phones only have so much memory. And as we're storing pictures, we want to make sure that we are aware of how much memory they take. Now, each pixel in a printed screen, each pixel takes up 4 bytes of memory. The reason why is because each pixel is for each ink used. CMYK. C is cyan, M is magenta, Y is yellow, and K is black. Cyan, magenta, yellow, black. If you go into Mrs. Gaynor's office and ask her to open the front of her printer as a project for my class and just look at the toner cartridges in her color copier, you'll see cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Each piece of paper goes through all 4 of those processes. And it's amazing how all this works in it. And each one of those colors had to be stored by the computer. So a pixel, a byte for each one. So a 4x4 picture would be 1200 pixels by 1200 pixels. If each pixel takes 4 bytes, we need to get an idea of how much memory. So we'll take 1200 by 1200, which would give us 1,440 pixels in this photo. 1,440,000. That's how many pixels. There's almost 1.5 million pixels in a 4x4 printed photo. Not this one, because this one's on the screen. But if it was printed quality, that's how much it would be. If there's 4 bytes for each one of these pixels, that's 5.7 thousand bytes, 5.7 megabytes. Now remember the types of ways of storing photos are RAW, TIFF, JPEG, PNG, etc. Well, the RAW or TIFF photo saves every bit of data from a picture, but a JPEG doesn't. A JPEG compresses the file. Let's go back to the girl. A JPEG will take these pixels and it will compress the information so it would be a lot smaller picture. Let's look at this photo, for example. A TIFF image would take over 8 megabytes. Now, to tell you the truth, I'm not exactly sure why it would take over 8 when I just said it would be 5.7. But even if it's just 5.7, that's a lot of pixels. But a JPEG at a high rating, if you set it JPEG high quality, it's less than 1/2 of a megabyte. 413 kilobytes is less than 1/2 of a megabyte. So instead of 8 megabytes or even 5.7 megabytes, it's only 1/2 a megabyte. That's a lot less. The way a JPEG does that, the way a JPEG does that is it looks at each pixel, every one of these, maybe 1.5 million pixels, and it takes that pixel and it looks at all the pixels surrounding it. So it looks at one pixel with every pixel surrounding it. With each pixel, there's 8 pixels surrounding it, a total of 9. Think of Brady Bunch. Okay. And it looks at that group. It may even look at a bigger group than that in some situations. And it doesn't save each one individually. It may save them as groups because they're similar color. The lower the rating, the more area it looks around and the more it groups pixels together. But even at a medium JPEG, it still looks pretty good, doesn't it? Even a small JPEG looks decent from this standpoint. But I can already see some graininess in this picture. I don't know if you can notice it, but there is some graininess. And sometimes you see some real poor quality graininess in pictures, and that's because you have had a small quality JPEG. And even though it's very, very small, you have to be careful. Let me zoom in on this area right here, on this medium one. Look at it. See how you can see blockiness around this part of the picture? Things are starting to be a little blocky. Now, obviously it's blocky because there's pixels, but there's also some indication that some of the pixels are not exactly what they should be. Now let's look at the worst quality JPEG. Oh, wow, it really is blocky, isn't it? And as you can tell, if I put this on a screen, people might start to see that blockiness. So even though I want to save space and make it low quality, this is what you may end up getting. Some of you may have where you have texted a picture to somebody and it asks if you want a actual size, high quality, medium quality, low quality. These are the kinds of things it's asking you for. Now, where do you get pictures? You can scan it with a scanner. Duh. I don't recommend that unless it's a really good quality scanner. Nowadays, I just take photos of pictures. In fact, for most of what I do, I'm just able to take a photo with my iPhone, and I'll let it go by that. When you take photos of pictures, though, be very careful about glare and shadow. You want a really good quality lighting as you're doing it. Of course, you can buy a camera. You can go to Sam's Club or Walmart or Best Buy or someplace like that, or get on Amazon and buy you a decent little camera. And you might pay $400 or $500 or even more based on the package you get to start out. You can pay thousands of dollars for a camera if you want a much higher quality one, and thousands of dollars for a lens if you want a higher quality. This is called an SLR camera, SLR. By the way, somebody in your church might already have a nice camera or really be interested in doing photography for you if that's really not your bag. SLR camera, back to that, means a single lens reflex camera. It's the kind of cameras where you can pop the lens off and stick another lens on, like maybe a zoom lens or a wide angle lens. It has interchangeable lenses. Most cameras today have a lot of pixels. An 8x10 picture at 300 ppi is about 7 megapixels full quality. An iPhone has 8 megapixels, iPhone 6. So even our phones are much better than they used to be, aren't they? Now, you can also get pictures from online sources. There's royalty-free pictures. In fact, there's actually free pictures, and there's a difference between royalty-free and free. Free means you don't have to pay for them. Royalty-free means you might have to pay for it, but you don't have to pay royalties. You don't have to pay for how many of our copies you're going to end up printing. Freeimages.com, rgbstock.com are a couple of places where you get free images. You can also pay for pictures. I've paid for a lot of pictures over the years. iStock Photos is a place that I used a lot, but their prices are going up. StockFresh is another place. There are a lot of other places too. You might pay at StockFresh, you might pay $3 or $4 for a picture like that you can use on your web. You might pay more like $8 or $10 if it's a high quality for printing. You can, by the way, you can pay hundreds of dollars for pictures in some sites. Pictures can be expensive. You can search for other resources. Be careful about viruses. Make sure that it's royalty free, and be very, very, very careful about the quality. Usually, check the pixels, the pixel count. You can do a search in Google or Yahoo and click on images and find a bunch of pictures. If you just put the word dog in Yahoo and then click on images, you'll find a bunch of pictures, but you have to watch the quality. Also, those aren't necessarily free to use from a copyright standpoint. Now, how about software? How can you use software? Well, you can enhance photos, make them better looking, and brighten them a little bit. You can do correction, like take people's pimples off and that kind of thing. You can crop it down to where you're only looking at a smaller portion of the picture. You can do special effects like making everything black and white, or only leaving one part color and everything else black and white, or all kinds of effects. And of course, software will help you with layout and design. When it comes to photo, Photoshop is the one I use all the time, and I love it. There is a cheaper version, and then Miss Bear uses Lightroom. She really likes it. If you're interested in looking into that, it does a lot of things, but it doesn't quite do everything Photoshop does. How about layout? If you want to lay out a poster or a postcard or some sort of a brochure or something, borrow brains. Find ideas that look good and use them. My public relations professor at graduate school said that these people who design magazines and brochures for companies and so forth have degrees in this stuff. Use their brains, and he used to collect all kinds of stuff. Look around, do searches and find them. Sometimes your software may provide templates. What I mean by a template is the design's already there. You just drop in a picture here and a photo there and a graphic here and text here, and you just change it like you want. If any of you go into Christian schools and do yearbooks, you can find companies where yearbooks just simply provide templates and you drop stuff in. You can search for good images, not just for photos, but you could say like cookout poster, and then click images, and it would give you a lot of posters that you could use on for a design for a cookout that you're going to have for your youth group or something. Adobe InDesign is what Miss Bear and I use. It's pretty costly. Microsoft Publisher is what I use in my desktop publishing class here, and it's a lot cheaper. I'm not sure if it's still less than $100, but it's a lot cheaper. Adobe Lightroom. Canva.com is one you may want to consider. Miss Sarah is using that a lot now. She has got an account on Canva.com, and the postcards and so forth that she's been designing, like for All Access Day or our posters we've been putting out and stuff, she's been doing on Canva.com. They do charge you if you use some of their photos, but you can actually do their stuff and get it for nothing. How about printing? Well, you can go into Yahoo or Google and search for 4-color printing or color printing. I use gotprint.com, especially for postcards, brochures, and flyers. I've used Print Pelican for brochures and flyers. It includes shipping in their prices. Printing Center USA I've used for our standard or magazines and booklets. Instant Publisher I've used for books. And we've used Blossom for our yearbook. We're doing that this year. Blurb is we've also used for our yearbook. Shutterfly, you can do books, right? So you just be careful as you're doing that. My tips for you is to check prices. Make sure you're looking if shipping is included. How much is the turnarounds? What are their guidelines or specs? For some crazy reason, GotPrint requires 350 PPI or DPI for certain things, like I think postcards and business cards. So be very careful about that. Shop around. I make a spreadsheet and try to lay it out, and for this many and this quality paper and blah 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 blah, I ended up with a price. My final thoughts: get good pictures. Pay a professional to get good pictures if you have to. Consider using stock photos of people. You don't want to do a brochure for your church and use a family in your church on the front of that brochure and have that family get mad at you in 6 months and leave the church. You got thousands of brochures laying around that you can't use. You might want to use just stock photos. And keep your photos proportional. Here's what I mean by that. See this picture of me? The one on the left is the right proportion. The one in the middle is squeezed up, and the one on the right is pulled out. And this is a classic mistake of amateur layout design, is people not getting their photos the right proportion. Find help in your congregation or staff. You may have some people in your congregation that really loves to do this kind of thing, can help you with photography, can help you with things. And then you can get training. You can take, of course, desktop publishing here or whatever, but there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube nowadays of how to take good photos. And then, of course, your local community college is also a good choice. I hope you've enjoyed this. Now, study your notes and go to Populi and take the publishing quiz.